Walker, Museum Coordinator, and I'm so excited you're here. I hear you guys had a wonderful experience over at the conference. I'm embarrassed and hurt that I missed the whole thing. I was over here setting up and preparing for you, but I hope that you truly did enjoy yourselves and that you got a lot and that you learned about ways that you can infuse African American history into your curriculum when you go back to your various places. Do you think that happened today?
Definitely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I have the wonderful opportunity and task of, first of all, just kind of sharing a little bit about myself, but the true beauty of what I get to do now is introducing you to a very near and dear friend of mine. First of all, I'm excited to be able to lead this facility because I'm 5th generation here within this community. That means a lot to me. I've had a chance to watch a lot of things. I've had a chance to sit at the feet of my great-great-grandfather, who you will read a little bit about. I believe we've still got a panel up of him in this room. And also didn't know my great-grandfather because he died, unfortunately, when he was 47 years old. But I do get a chance to sit right now also at the feet of my 93-year-old grandfather, who owns a local business right around the corner here, who was so gracious to sponsor this event right now. So this means a lot to be able to tell the story of 5th Avenue, Pleasant Street, and the magnificent, awesome, big red Lincoln High School. You're standing right now in what was about 8 months in the making, okay? And actually a whole lot longer than that. The exhibit itself took us probably 8 months to crank out, but it came from the brain of this amazing woman who I'm proud to call my friend. She is an exemplary scholar. She is an outstanding human being who has really dedicated herself to the work of education and of history. You've already met her, but for those of you who've not yet had the opportunity to really dig deep underneath the surface of who she is, amazing, in one simple word. I want to just kind of put a pin in what I'm going to say here because it's important that in walking around this exhibit, you understand what you're standing in the middle of. Diedre did her dissertation on Lincoln High School.
Wow.
Right. So when I so absolutely. So when I came on board as the director of the A. Quinn Jones Museum and Cultural Center about 2 years ago, I was looking for things to do and I was planning all these programs and everything, and a good friend of mine said, "You have got to meet Dr. Houchen." And I was like, "Yes, I'd love to meet him." And my friend was like, no, this is Dr. Diedre Houchen. And I was like, okay, well, I'd love to meet her. She said she did her dissertation on Lincoln, and I had the same reaction that you had. Called Diedre up, we got together, we had a tremendous lunch right around the corner at a restaurant, and we started plotting how we were gonna just take over the world. One exhibit at a time. But I say all of this to say, it's truly a joy to be a community organization working hand in hand and in tandem with someone at the University of Florida who has had the forethought to remember this community. This history could have very well vanished with the individuals who attended Lincoln. Could have very well vanished with 96-year-old grandson of A. Quinn Jones, who's still with us, okay? But thank you, Dr. Diedre Houchen, for not allowing that to happen. So you're standing in the exhibit known as Lincoln High School, a Metaphor for Excellence. It took, like I said, 8 months of hard work of a team. If you've read this welcome board or panel, you've seen the team down at the very bottom, but please know that we would just support for the woman whose heart and whose passion, whose brain has been developing this for a very, very long time. I'd like to now turn this over to my dear friend, Dr. Diedre Houchen, who is the curator of this exhibit.
Desmon, thank you very much. You are, you're the best kind of collaborator that one could have. You really are. The kind that lifts you up, the kind that reminds you why you do the work you're doing, and you are the work that I'm doing. So I really appreciate how kindly you spoke to me. Thank you.
It's all true.
But beyond Desmond and I and the team, it's not about us. We are nothing compared to this woman right here, the first wife of A. Quinn Jones, Mrs. A.M. Jones, who was a teacher here at Lincoln High School. We are nothing compared to A. Quinn Jones. We are nothing compared to Mabel Dorsey. We're nothing compared to master teachers who practiced in this community for over 70 years. So you're educators. This is my favorite group of people to talk about this exhibition with, because I want you to know the shoulders that we are all standing on as educators, and the obstacles that they had to overcome, yes, to become educators, but the excellence that they have that we have not yet reached, which that's the part that I don't think we understand, is that once upon a time, in segregated communities across the South, there were schools that were phenomenal. We did not integrate schools because the teachers were insufficient, or because the information that was being passed on was insufficient, or because the students were insufficient. We desegregated schools because we wanted the same kinds of materials that they had, and we needed to integrate this society. So schools were the mechanism that was used to launch a public platform for integrating the entire United States of America. But in doing so, we lost the history of these incredible institutions, which is why I sat in the archives for many, many years, being amazed over and over. To give you an example, how many of you teach one subject? If you're a teacher, you teach reading or math. How many of you teach two subjects? Elementary school teachers, absolutely. How many middle and high school teachers are teaching two subjects? Phenomenal. Congratulations. I taught two, it was difficult. How many middle and high school teachers in here are teaching three subjects? None. How many are teaching four subjects?
Yay!
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yes.
Wow. A. Quinn Jones was the principal of the school, also teaching Latin, biology, chemistry, and English. He could out-teach me any day. Any day. And his knowledge of content as well as pedagogy was extraordinary. So Lincoln High School was the second in a 100-year trajectory of African American education in Alachua County, in this particular area of Alachua County. There were other African American schools throughout the county, so I do want you to know that. Lincoln High School was closed in 1970, just to give you a bit of the history, when the schools were desegregated and Florida had to comply with what was called unitary status. It was closed, the students went to GHS and other schools, and then about 5 to 7 years later, Lincoln High was opened as a middle school. And it has never again retained its status as a degree granting institution, which was a big deal to have an African American degree granting institution. That's a lot of power to let people go to college, right? So when we're talking now about graduation rates and high school diplomas, it'd be something if we still had an all-black degree granting institution, wouldn't it? So just to give you a brief overview of the exhibition, and then I'll let you walk through and I won't talk anymore. The story of Lincoln High School begins with the story of FAMU. In that, A. Quinn Jones was one of the first 3 bachelor's earning graduates of Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University.
All right.
Okay?
Wait a minute.
So that's something to be extraordinarily proud of. One of the first 3 people ever out of that school to get a bachelor's degree. He achieved that degree in 1915. He and the son of the president and a young woman named Estelle Bellamy, who I'm waiting to see that there's a scholarship at FAM in the name of Estelle Bellamy for women.
Yeah.
But they were these three young people. They graduated from school. He knew he wanted to be a teacher. He studied education. And there was a group of advisors here, an advisory board, all black businessmen. Now, we're not necessarily talking about doctors, mailmen, whatever kinds of jobs. This is the middle of Jim Crow, right? So whatever kinds of jobs that African Americans have that have prestige, but aren't necessarily a graduate education. These people came together recognizing that the school board of Alachua County was neglecting African American education, as were all school boards across the South and the state and this particular state. And they created their own advisory board for African American education in the community. Hint, hint, there's an idea. So after they created this advisory board, they wrote a letter, and it's in this first case here. And they wrote this letter to the president of FAMU, and they said, we'd like you to send us, and they used this language in quotes, a real red-blooded man. And they were essentially asking for a rabble-rouser, and they said a real red-blooded man like you. They sent that to the president of FAM, who a few years later was going to be terminated because he was offering liberal arts education at FAMU instead of vocational education, which is what the State Board of Trustees wanted. So they sent him Quinn Jones. And Quinn Jones came to Gainesville in 1921, and he served until 1956 as a principal. And he and the team, the incredible team of faculty that he built, that he brought together here in Gainesville, established an education community for boys and girls and young men and women that essentially built Gainesville's black middle class, created a culture of excellence and academic endeavors, as well as just citizenship and responsibility and pride and collectivism. Those of you who come from other communities that also had black schools, I'm sure you're shaking your head going, that sounds like my school too. Because this is how black education was across the entire South. Now, unfortunately, when these schools were closed in 1970, the history didn't die with them, but it stayed with the people who came from that community, and it didn't get to you all.
Right.
It didn't get to white teachers. It didn't get to modern teachers.
Right.
That there is a model of this thing we're calling culturally responsive pedagogy that's 80 years old, 90 years old. It's actually where Gloria Ladson Billings, who created that term, got it from. She interviewed teachers who were at segregated schools. That's where we got culturally responsive pedagogy from. And the most important element of culturally responsive pedagogy, the culture part's important, culture part's very important, but the key are high expectations.
Amen.
It's excellence. It's you saying to a child, you're not going to fail on my watch.
That's right.
And not only are you not going to fail on my watch, but you will come out of here with the potential that I know in your head actualized. That's what we do when we do culturally responsive pedagogy. We teach children that they are excellent, that they come from excellent, and they must be excellent when they walk out of our classroom.
Absolutely.
So that is what this exhibit is about. It is about how Lincoln High School, during this time period, when we're looking for a metaphor for excellence in today's education, we need to look back in the past because we've already created it and we have the records of it, and so we'd like to share it with you. So on that note, welcome. Look around, and if you have any questions, myself or Ms. Walker is here to answer anything you have. Yes, sir.
Union Academy that preceded Lincoln. What was the starting year for that? Was that right out of
1866? Yes, and it was started by the AMA.
From the very beginning.
Yes, so, and it was only run though, so the AMA was a white missionary organization, white Methodist missionary organization. They brought white teachers down here. They taught at Union Academy for 2 to 3 years and left. And after they left, after those 2 to 3 years, it has been black teachers educating the black students in this community for the remainder of that 100-year period. Any other questions? Well, enjoy. Get yourself some snacks. Look around. We have a few brochures about the exhibit here for you.
Excellent.